We've got Rhett back. Rhett, thanks for putting up with the technical issues. We're talking about Lauren Mulliken and Wade Belak and the Saskatoon. Like, the one thing I've always loved about the Saskatoon Blades, much like the new Westminster Bruins before them, they always had a tough team. They always had a tough team. And if you fast forward now to the NHL and you look at tough teams, the one that jumps off the page are the Florida Panthers. Before we get to today's Panthers, take me back to 96 Panthers. I used to work with Doug McLean, and I heard tons of stories. I heard stories where Doug would say, the only way we could slow down the Pittsburgh Penguins is I would tell the Zamboni driver to dump extra water on the ice and just turn it into a slushy and slow down the. You're laughing because it's true. Things like that you guys would do.
Yeah, we played them in May, I think. That's in the semifinals, maybe early June. I can't really remember. But in Florida, regardless of whether it was May or June, it was so bloody hot and the humidity that the ice was terrible. It was very helpful against skilled players like that.
Put a little extra water in there, or put a little something extra in your envelope, Mr. and Mrs. Zamboni driver. We'll really appreciate that. But what was that? Before we go to this edition of the Florida Panthers, what are your takeaways from that? First of all, 96 was an incredible run. What's still in the brain cells for you from 96?
Oh, anytime a team goes on a run, you always hear close team, and we were one of those teams. The basis of that team was a bunch of cast-offs, and they were kind of Roger Nielsen had been there and had a major imprint on how that team could play defensively. There wasn't even if you say you play the trap now, the guy's like, oh, man, that's terrible hockey. And it was like we play the trap. I remember my first training camp, get on the ice, and the puck dumps into the other team's end, and Scott Mellenby's like, trap, play the trap it up. I'm like, what is this trap system? And then I realized I didn't have to skate, and I absolutely fell in love with it. So it was really good for me. It was a real compliment. But Roger Nielsen had implemented that defense first system, and then Beezer was on the top of his game, and Roger left. Doug McLean came in. Brian Murray came in, and they knew that eventually there had to be some youth added to the roster. And lucky for me, Ed Jovanovski was going to make the team as the first overall pick, and he needed a sidekick. So I kind of got nominated as that guy. And then Rob Niedermeyer was there. Radek Dvorak made the team. So they were trying to implement a few young guys. People forget and maybe don't recognize, and maybe it's because you couldn't even get the games. Like my first game, my parents couldn't find it. So it's a different era. You can watch on your phone now. But Ed Jovanovski, we went into Philly in round 2. We beat Boston in round 1. Yeah. In round 2, we were up against the Legion of Doom, and they were intimidating. But Ed Jovanovski absolutely owned Lindros in that series. It was the first time that I'd seen, or I think maybe anyone had seen, Lindros get smacked around. And it was Jovo doing it on a regular basis. And it pissed the Flyers off to no end. But so Jovanovski stepped up. We had a defensive system that was really good. Beezer was on his game and lights out. We played some tough teams. Like we had to beat Philly. One of my proudest things is playing the last game in the Spectrum. Double overtime. Mike Huff beats Ron Hextall to score or to win it. Then we had to go up against one of the most talented teams maybe ever in Pittsburgh with Lemieux, Yager, Francis, the whole thing. But that Colorado team we ran into at the end, oh boy, we were a little outmatched and a little outmanned, and they were next level. We weren't going to beat them at all.
There was I want to ask you about Patrick Waugh, because one of my favorite hockey pictures. I've got a lot of favorite pictures that'll always be with me, like the Barilko 51 taken by Nat Turovsky, one of the great hockey photographers. The Turovsky brothers were fantastic. Nat Turovsky took that shot. Jerry McNeil's lying back and Rocket Richard's got his mouth open and Barilko's diving through the air. It's a beautiful moment of time because the puck hasn't yet gone in, and it's a perfect slice because the fans haven't jumped up yet. Is that that I'm in love with, like the moment before the moment, like that split second right before the thing happens. So it's a perfect, to me, that is the perfect hockey photograph. But also up there is a picture of Patrick Waugh from that series with the Avalanche. And it's after your Panthers scored a goal. And you remember, like, rats are hitting the ice. And goalies would either go in the net to hide or just try to get out of the way of the rats. And there's Patrick Waugh in his crease. And, he uses it all for, like, fuel. Just standing there getting pelted by rats, getting angrier. And he's not hiding in the crease. He's like, I'm not hiding the net. Like, F you, not a chance. And he's sitting there taking it. What was it like going? I mean, this is a murderer's sack. What was it like playing against the Avs in '96?
Well, you can say intimidating, but it's almost the wrong word. Like I said, we went into Pittsburgh and played a very, 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 very talented team, and then we went and played Colorado, and it was just the next level. They were fast, they were gritty, and the goaltending was second to none, obviously, with Waugh there. Yeah. We didn't lose too bad in game one. We got absolutely snot bubbled in game two. And it was a feeling that you're like, what do we got to do? I remember Scott Mellenby we got swept in that series. In game three, Mel had a wide open net, and Waugh came across and made one of those saves that only he can make. Yeah. And you were like, it's kind of like that. Remember that show, The Perfect Storm?
Of course.
Where they think they're going to get out of that storm, and then he's like, "It's not going to let us go." That's how it felt. It was like, we're not getting out of this one. Yeah. These guys are just too dialed in and too good to beat.
Hell of a run, though, man.
Hell of a run in '96. If only who was coaching in Montreal had pulled Waugh after 5 goals instead of leaving him in there until the ninth, maybe you'd have had a chance.
Or if they just would have done the original deal, which was Patrick Waugh for Ed Belfour, 1-for-1, and sent him to Chicago, and then Belfour would have gone to Montreal. You would have kept Patrick Waugh away from Colorado. Would have been Jocelyn Thibault in there. And it wouldn't have been Patrick Waugh.
And who knows who wins the Colorado-Detroit series, because that was pretty epic itself.
Yep, those were some good times, Rhett Warrener. Now, if you enjoyed that video, and we certainly hope that you do, please hit the subscribe button right there here at Daily Faceoff. I will put this lineup up against any hockey lineup anywhere. It all gets underway at 9 o'clock Eastern with Morning Cup of Hockey. That is Johnny Lazarus. That is Colby Cohen. Then at noon, it's DFO Live. And then 3 o'clock Eastern, The Sheet. Get caught up on everything in hockey.